Welcome to the TeacherCast Educational Network, coming to you from the TeacherCast studios since 2011. Join us each week as we bring you the latest educational news, EdTech updates, and hottest interviews with today's most influential leaders in education. And now, for your host, Jeff Bradbury.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the TeacherCast Educational Network. My name is Jeff Bradbury. Thank you so much for joining us today and making TeacherCast your home for professional development. This is Digital Learning Today, episode number 27. Today, we're going to be talking to Jason McKenna, the Vice President of Global Education Strategy for VEX Robotics. And today, we're going to be helping out you figure out how you can create a classroom full of risk takers. How can you create a culture where students are not afraid to fail? Don't forget to check out all the great stuff happening over at teachercast.net. And of course, if you're going to be at the ISTE conference next week, I would love to see you guys. I got some great presentations happening on Monday at 10 o'clock in the morning. We have our Ignite session. At 12 o'clock, I'm going to be speaking at the Google booth. 1 o'clock, I'm going to be at the ISTE Instructional Coaches Playground. And on Tuesday and Wednesday, you're going to see me running all around the vendor floor with my microphone. Don't forget to hit me up, stop me, say hello, grab a selfie. I hope to see you guys next week at the ISTE conference. My guest today is the Vice President of Global Education Strategy for a fantastic company called VEX. You might remember him. He was on the show a few weeks ago. I wanted to have him come back on because not only did we have a lot of great feedback from that episode, but I got to tell you, I'm looking forward to meeting his team this week at ISTE. Jason, welcome back to TeacherCast. How are you today, my friend?
I am doing fantastic, Jeff. It's always great to talk to you. Thank you for having me back on.
I am so excited about the things that I'm hearing from VEX. For those who don't yet know and aren't familiar with the company, tell us a little bit about VEX and what are you guys planning to unveil next week at the ISTE conference?
Yes, at VEX, we like to say that we're the global leaders in STEM education. We say that because of our reach. Millions of students all over the world touch and use our products every single day. One of the things I'm proudest of, being a former classroom teacher myself, is we've certified almost 19,000 teachers in STEM education through VEX Professional Development Plus. And also, we have the world's largest robotics competition. So we talked about that on the last episode. So late April, early May of this past year, we had about 70,000 very loud and enthusiastic students descend upon Dallas, Texas, representing over 70 countries to compete in the VEX Robotics World Championship. So we create meaningful learning experiences for teachers and students all over the world. That's what we're so proud of. That's what gets us out of bed every single day. In terms of ISTE, we'll be very excited to show off all of our VEX Continuum there at ISTE. So if you're a kindergarten, first grade teacher interested in introducing coding or computational thinking to your students, you can check out VEX 123 for that. If you're a middle school teacher and you want to find a really engaging way to teach your students Python, you can check out VEX IQ for that. If you want to check out our virtual robotic system, VEX Code VR, that'll be there. But two of our newer products that we'll be showing off during the ISTE will be number one, VEX CTE, which is all about teaching factory automation. You know, we talk all the time, like, how does Amazon get stuff delivered to me the very next day? How does it actually work? And there's a lot of logic and engineering and computer science behind that. And that's what this new product is able to show for students. Secondly, VEX AIM, and this is a product that will begin shipping in the late fall, early winter timeframe. This is about teaching computer science. So just like VEX 123, this is not a construction kit, but instead, this is an opportunity for students to use robotics to take the abstract concepts of computer science and make it much more concrete and engaging for them. Our Director of Computer Science Education, Dr. Jimmy Lin, will be there showing off both of those products with the rest of our education team. So I would highly encourage you to come and check it out.
You know, I have a couple of questions for you about the World Championships based off of some of the emails and feedback that we got from the last episode. One of the questions that teachers have asked is it too early to get started now? I mean, are these things that teachers and stuff prepare over the summertime? Is this something that you have to kind of gradually get into? When is it the right time to start to put a team together if you are interested in competing, you know, at local competitions?
The right time is whenever you feel comfortable doing it. If you're just getting started, the vast majority of schools get started in the fall when the school year begins, right? So when the school year begins, that's when the team will get back together. That's when they'll set their schedule of when they can meet. So during this time, this would be a good time for you to get familiar with the game, read the game manual. If you are going to host an event, get your event partner certification. The Robotics Education Competition Foundation also has a coach's certification. So you can go through, review all those resources and really learn the game during this time if you want to be able to do that. Now, what other schools do, so Miami-Dade, which runs very successful VEX programs in their school, they actually have a summer camp in which they use this year's game. So this year's game, either for IQ or for VRC, they'll run summer camps for students around that game. So when the students then come into their classroom on the first day of school, they hit the ground running. And they already know the game. They have an idea behind the drivetrain. They have an idea about the code that they want to be able to use. So all these cool things about it. If you want to run a summer camp, but you don't have access to this year's game, you can use camps.vex.com. We have entire STEM labs and activities, things that you can do around camps if you want to do something along those lines. But that's how most teams and most schools do it, is they get started in the fall.
One of the other questions that came up is about budgeting, of course. Right now we're in a process of several school districts had their budget. Some of them succeeded, some of them didn't. Now that it's, in the middle of July here or coming up till July, budgets are going to open up again. What do you recommend for school districts as far as budgeting? If they want to start up a VEX program or a robotics club, is this a $5,000 investment? Is this a $15,000 investment? Is this a $300 investment? What is the financial consideration for a program here?
So if you're getting started with VEX IQ, it really is not that large of a list for you to get started. So if you wanted to buy a competition kit for your students, that's going to run you around $600. If you want to register your team, that's about $100. If you want to buy the field and the game elements, that's about another $300 or $400. The field you reuse every single year, and for your competition kit, you can also reuse that every single year. So once you make that initial buy-in, really all that you're paying for year after year is your team registration, and then also the new game elements. That's about a $300 cost every single year to get started with that. The really nice thing about the competition structure is the REC Foundation, which really helps, which is a nonprofit that helps run these competitions. They have what's called a regional support manager, and that regional support manager can work with you to help you create a budget for you and your school, so you know exactly what it is. So how many kits do I need to buy? If I have 30 students interested, is that 3 teams? Okay, do I need 3 competition kits to be able to do that? That is those regional support managers are really wonderful for you to be able to help with that and to be able to do that. So if you don't know who your regional support manager is, you can contact me, Jason at vex.com. Just tell me where you are, and I can get you in contact with the right person or send you the webpage. The RCS actually has a webpage. You can click on your state, and it will show you the regional support manager. But that's really a great way for you to get started, to kind of learn all those particular things. And if you want to host a competition, like, what do I have to do with that? Those are all things that your RSM can walk you through for sure.
Jason, when we look at STEM education, we often talk about the basics: science, technology, engineering, and math. But it's so much more than that. It really is about creating a program that helps our students become leaders of tomorrow. And I find that the best STEM programs are the ones where you see the teacher standing somewhere else. The students are the one that's leading it. The students are the one that's putting it together. And the students really are the one that year after year are doing the recruiting. What advice do you have for clubs around the area creating these teams, but more importantly, creating amazing adults?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So STEM is not just a subject; it's not an integration of different subjects. It's really a pedagogy, like you were describing so eloquently there a moment ago. And it's really about creating this student-centered pedagogy where students are not afraid to take risks, where students are really feel empowered to try things, where student agency is really emphasized, and it is really something that is put at the forefront of what the students are being asked to do. If you think about, why are we doing this? Why am I doing this at VEX? Why do I do this in the classroom? Jeff, why do you do this in the classroom? And, and something I've said all the time is that We do not want students to just be consumers of technology, but also creators of technology. But what I've learned in the last 2 years or so, that's actually not enough. I came across this fantastic quote. I was at the ISLS conference in Buffalo last week, and one of the presentations I saw talked about that we want students to be philosophers of education. It's not just consumers of technology, but philosophers of technology education. So what does it actually mean? That means we want students not just to be able to use technology, but to think critically about it. What is the ethical and the non-ethical uses of artificial intelligence? Whom am I designing this product for? What ends am I actually trying to achieve with it? Those are much more important goals we want to be able to direct our students toward. So how do we actually do that? We have to put students at the front and center of that. That means that we create assessments for our students that we do with them and not to them. That means we have conversations with students about how they're actually performing, as opposed to just attaching a letter grade at the end of a paper or using a rubric to just judge their robot at the end of a class activity or competition. That means we actually ask students to participate in our curriculum design. We actually talk about what is meaningful, what's actually impactful for them, and try to infuse that when we design these activities for our students. That participatory design is also a very important aspect of it. And lastly, and probably most importantly, is we have to create a culture in our classrooms where students are not afraid to take risks, where students really feel empowered to try and do new things. And we have to incentivize our students to be able to do that.
You said a lot there, and I want to unpack that. The first thing I want to unpack is this idea of creating a culture. Now, everything you were just saying was resonating with me. My listeners know I took on a middle school teaching position in January. I had 18 weeks with the kids, and getting them underneath of the concepts that I was trying to bring in was difficult, because I came in trying to go 150 miles an hour. They were not ready for it. What advice do you have for teachers out there of any type of subject when they're thinking about culture creating? I know for myself, I expected to walk in and, hey, we're doing this stuff and this is how we're going to do it. And you're going to do video and audio, and they weren't there yet. How do you start to create a culture, and how do you keep that culture going? It's either semester after semester or generation after generation. How do you start this?
So something I've learned a lot about within the last year or so, I mentioned briefly a moment ago, and part of my answer to your question was involving students and having those conversations with students in the actual design of your curriculum. There's a ton of research to support this. If you want links to that research, again, just email me. I'll email some of them to Jeff if he wants to put them, when this podcast is posted. But participatory design in your curriculum. So just like you said, don't go into your classroom thinking we're going to do this, and this. And that's what I did also. But go into your classroom and have it just, what is meaningful to you? What is impactful to you? And obviously, think about that for a second. If you ask that question, they're not going to give you an honest answer if you don't know them, right? So what are you doing to build belonging amongst your students? What are you doing to make them feel comfortable to answer those questions, right? So what are you doing to make sure those students feel like they're an integral part of that classroom? That is the art of teaching. There's the science of teaching, but that is the art of teaching, is bringing the students along with you and making them feel comfortable having those conversations with them. That's step one. So after you have those conversations with them, now how do you get the students to the point where you can actually incentivize them and prepare them to take risks and do things like that? The story I tell all the time is I took my middle school students, on a tour of Carnegie Mellon's Entertainment Technology Center, and that's where they had the Penguin Award. That's where they were actually giving awards out to the team of graduate students that were failing the most spectacularly. So it's one thing in your classroom to say it's okay if you fail. It's one thing in your classroom to say, you should just view failure as feedback. It's another thing to actually reward your students for failing. And that's what we don't do in our classrooms right now in terms of our culture. And that's why we don't have students that actually take risks, because we're not doing anything to incentivize and actually reward failure amongst our students.
What does that look like? When you say reward, define that for us.
So it could be something as simple as, instead of giving your students an exit slip and they walk out of the classroom that day, you can, at the last 5 minutes of class, highlight when the students tried something and it didn't work successfully, and highlight that process when you're doing that. So you could do something at a very micro level like that. You could do something also at a very macro level, and that, like, every month you'd have students document what they were doing in their engineering design journal or in their science notebook. So they're actually going through and documenting things that they're trying. And when students do a good job of documenting what they tried and why it didn't work, and then what they learned from it, you can do a nice job of actually rewarding them for that. Give them an award. Have a plaque on the wall. Give them a certificate, just like you would give out a certificate for anything else in your classroom. Make a big deal out of the students actually making mistakes and learning from those mistakes. We also know, research also tells us is that's a very big difference between, performance and learning. Right? You tell me the answer to these 5 things, I'm able to regurgitate them back to you. That's just performance. Learning is actually messy. Learning actually happens when students do make mistakes first, right? It's the productive failure. They do make the mistakes first. They do struggle first. They do try a bunch of different things. Then they get feedback, they learn from it, and they move on. We know from research that's what actually enhances learning. And that's just rewarding failure. So let's go ahead and actually reward our students when they fail. And you can make any gimmick in your classroom that you want to. Gimmick's probably not the right word, but I think you know what I mean when I say that. You have certificates, you have small trophies, you send letters home to the parents when you highlight these particular things. Go talk to your administrators. Instead of giving awards out to those kids at the end of the school year assembly that have perfect attendance and they have this many points on this particular assessment or whatever it is, give an award out to those students from your STEM classroom that failed the most spectacularly and talk about that. So try to create at both a micro level and at a macro level of how you can actually go through and reward failure.
One of the things that I love about VEX Robotics is that you have support groups for teachers out there, and also spaces where teachers can have these conversations. Talk to us a little bit about some of the professional development opportunities that are available for teachers who are looking to learn these skills and also looking to create a STEM team.
Yeah, so as we talked about, we've certified close to 19,000 teachers. We're very proud of that, and that's all through our VEX Professional Development Plus platform. So there, we have what we call free intro courses to all of our platforms and all of our products. I just mentioned CTE a moment ago. We just published our free intro course, our professional development for that particular product. So if you want to know what unboxing that product looks like, if you want to know how to get started teaching that product, it's all located right there for you. So it's self-paced online. You go through there, you take our certification exam at the end, and if you pass that exam, now you're granted entrance into a professional learning community. That is when you can have these really robust conversations with other educators, and also the VEX Education team. Myself, I mentioned Dr. Jimmy Lim, our Director of Computer Science Education, our software team, the people that actually create VEX code. You can have really impactful and robust conversations with all those people about how you're trying to create this particular culture in your classroom, how you're trying to make your assessment more student-centered, how you are trying to troubleshoot this one particular piece of code and how you're having a hard time doing it. Whatever your question may be, you have those opportunities in our professional learning community to get those answers, to have that collaboration, to go through and really feel empowered with what you're trying to do with STEM in your classroom.
Well, there's one thing for sure. We want to make sure that next year is very successful, and we can do that by checking out all those great things over at VEXRobotics.com. I want to say thank you to Jason and everybody over at VEX for coming back on the show and sharing a little bit about how you guys can create a fantastic STEM program in your school districts. Well, that wraps up this episode of Digital Learning Today, episode number 27. Don't forget to hit up the show notes. All the links and stuff are going to be there. And on behalf of everybody here in the TeacherCast Educational Network, my name is Jeff Bradbury, reminding you guys to keep up the great work in your classrooms and continue sharing your passions with your students.
You've been listening to the TeacherCast Educational Network, hosted by Jeff Bradbury. Please reach out to the show with all of your questions on Twitter @TeacherCast or online at www.teachercast.net. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. And please take a moment to write a review in the App Store.